I'm so sorry.
Okay, perfect. So, Sasha, why don't you kind of start us off? Just introduce yourself. I really want to know who you are in digital communities, not the one you moderate, but just overall kind of your personality, but introduce yourself to us.
Sure. Well, hello, everybody. It's so nice to meet all of you. I am Sasha Flores. My role at Rio Salado College is the project and change manager of strategic initiatives. Basically, I support some of our strategic projects for the college. I've been in this role for 4 years, 4 years just a couple weeks ago, actually. But I've actually been with Rio Salado College for over 20 years. It's part of the Maricopa Community College District here in the Phoenix area, the Maricopa County area in Arizona. Um, we launched InScribe in 2021 as part of a pilot study and to study student belonging. And I have been the default product owner since then. They can't seem to take it away from me and pry it out of my hands, so to speak, which is great. And I've loved the space and developing an opportunity for community for our students. Rio is predominantly, for our credit programs, we are predominantly asynchronous online with one course with many start dates. And so that does not foster the ability for our students to meet each other. They don't really come to campus. We have students across the country in all 50 states and around the world. It's very, very hard to connect folks when they're in an asynchronous environment like that. So this was a great solution for us to bring forward. That's my role. I'm like the all things at Rio Inscribe. If anyone ever has a question, they all come to me, and I kind of monitor and moderate all of our spaces. We have multiple communities, not just our peer-to-peer space. So I help facilitate all of those. So it's nice to meet everybody.
Awesome. And who do you think you are in online communities?
Who do I think I am? Remind me what that question means, because I
Um,
skimmed over the agenda, but
if,
I don't think I had context.
Adam will actually, I feel like Adam has a different category, but a conversation starter, a participant,
Hmm.
a lurker, viewer. Adam, wasn't there another one that you had? No pressure.
I think I had six total, but yeah. Um, I have your email pulled up. So where is it? Let's see.
I had it.
You have a conversation starter, participant, or viewer lurker. There's also like an event enthusiast or a resource seeker, as categories too.
I am I float somewhere between lurker and conversation starter, depending on the need of the space. Most of the time, I'm the moderator, so I just kind of intervene where necessary or escalate things as appropriate. So I really am, the majority of my time is really more spent as a lurker. But then I will facilitate some conversations or replies, depending on the need. I really try to take a very hands-off approach, though, with the space. So I'm a lot more quiet in Rio Connect than I am in my social networks. So I'll put it that way.
Awesome. Andrea, do you want to go next?
Sure. So my name's Andrea Caraway. I'm housed in the Division of Student Affairs, so I am our online student experience manager. So my role is really to bring student affairs experiences to our online students. And so I work with all of the departments in our division, one to help them with hybrid and virtual programs, but then also to connect students to the resources that they are offering. Um, what else am I supposed to share? My community personality. I would say in our Inscribe community, I am a question answerer. So if there is if there's no need for me to put anything in there, I don't. So I think I try to let our students take the lead on that, but I definitely go through and answer questions. I get really bothered by the notification that there are unanswered responses in Scribe. But I think personally, I love online communities. I have a master's in learning technologies. I'm a gamer, so I feel like I'm a part of a lot of gaming communities and things like that. So in my personal life, I think it depends on the community. There are some spaces where I'm a lurker, and then some spaces where I might share more. um, we have, let's see, we've got about 20,000 students in our Inscribe community. We have one community that has everyone. Our campus has about 46,000 students total, so that's about half of campus. In our Inscribe community, we targeted online students, students at our Frisco campus, international students, and graduate students. We don't necessarily turn students away from resources. So if there are students who fall outside of that group that found the webpage and then just clicked on it, they're in the community. So yay. But yeah, is there anything else I was supposed to share?
No, I think that's
I don't
awesome.
remember. Okay, awesome.
I think that's awesome. All right, Kevin, you're up.
Yeah, I'm also from UNT, so Kevin Huang. Um, and I currently reside within the Division of Digital Strategy and Innovation. On the online side, right? We work specifically with our two fully online degree programs, and that's our Bachelor of Applied Arts and Sciences and our Bachelor of General Business, Bachelor of Science in General Business, specifically with Coursera. So we have a strong partnership with Coursera currently. Um, so a lot of this was, built because of our students' need for a sense of belonging, as our students' need for just a space. Because, as you all know, being online, it's hard to interact and engage and be amongst community. And I think, even for myself going through undergrad, going through grad school, community was what held me together and what helped me succeed. And I feel like that is essentially what we're trying to do. Um, how I usually engage, and I didn't even know this about Andrea, that she's a gamer, but I'm also a gamer. So I'm really in different gaming communities. But also if I'm thinking like Reddit, I'm definitely a lurker, just a viewer, just I like to look at threads. But if it's like a specific Discord server or like a friends or a streamers Discord server, then typically, I'll start some conversations, I'll participate, I'll also lurk, but those are typically what I would do. Or even if I'm watching like a live stream of some sort on Twitch or something, usually a lurker, sometimes participator, but that's, I guess, my general online community engagement. But I do love that there is like that sense of community with it, and there are a lot of options too for a lot of people. So that's what I like. I mean, I'm usually on Reddit and Discord, so that's me. Oh, and do I need to share anything else? I think that's just me for now. Yes.
Very cool. Thank you.
Oh, and I guess one thing that is interesting to note about our community at UNT is Kevin's housed in our Division of Digital Strategy and Innovation, and I'm housed in Student Affairs. So it's a collaboration between the two divisions that might help with some context.
Nice. Thank you for adding that. Shelly, do you want to go?
Hi, everybody. This is great. I have to admit, I'm not a gamer. I feel a little left out. I wish I had more time to game. But anyways, I'm Shelly Hintz. I'm at University of Maryland Global Campus, and we are a predominantly virtual university. We provide online courses. We do have locations throughout the United States, as well as in Europe, North Africa, and Asia. We cater a lot to the military population. So I think over 50%, I think it's close to 60% of our students are military or militarily affiliated. But then we also are still a public institution inside the state of Maryland. So we also cater to them. And so, yeah, we've got, I don't even know how many students we have, but we have a lot of students. Most of them are taking classes online or at least partially online. And so our communities are really just a way for us to try and connect them. We do in our online classes a little different. They do have sections, so students go through a class together. We do have different starting times, but they do go through a class together. But like, for example, one class could have like 30 different sections. And so, we kind of brought Inscribe in for a couple different reasons. I don't know for one of the newer ones here because we're still expanding, but we started off with a course community for one of our intro first term experience classes that has like hundreds of sections every semester so that all the students can be in one space throughout their first semester here. And then we've started expanding into other areas. We have a general student community, and we're expanding into using like student clubs and organizations, which we already offer. But again, they're all virtual spaces in different areas. And so that's a little bit about the university. I am the director of student engagement. So I work with a lot of those student organizations within our Office of Student Affairs. And what was the other question? Oh, I'm probably a lurker. I'm not really in the inscribed communities that much because I really, like someone else said, I really just want the students to go in there and to connect with each other. But I will post things in there about, again, since I'm in student affairs, like events that are coming up that I want students to know about. But like in outside communities, I guess personally, I'm still like, for a big community where I don't know this a lot of people or anybody, I'm very much a lurker. I may post every once in a while, but for the most part, I'm just kind of like watching what's going on and seeing what other people say. So
Awesome. Love it. All right, Adam, you're up.
Oh, I have Asia, Africa. You are up. You're up. So it's something my husband and I do anytime somebody says you're up. Just list the rest of the continents. Adam Oldak, pronouns are he, him, also from University of Maryland Global Campus. And I'm a senior experience designer on the digital student experience team. So I think kind of a similar breakout to what y'all have there at UNT, only Shelly and I are both part of student affairs. So our team is like an initiative team within student affairs to help with that kind of early discovery and development for initiatives. So Shelly and I are paired on standing up these digital community spaces across the institution. And like Shelly said, we started with a pilot with our first year experience course last January and have been working to roll out additional spaces. Really the last couple of months, really standing those up and creating all of the governance frameworks around how we can start to really do this at scale for the institution. And I think in my private life in a community, I am definitely a lurker or quiet observer, but also kind of an event enthusiast. So I think within the inscribed communities, I get that listener badge really quick because I want to know all the things students are talking about, but I won't necessarily engage. But one of the parts of my role is to also help capture student voice, and Inscribe provides us a fantastic opportunity to do that. So. Did I miss anything? Was that all the things?
I think that was all the things. Thank you guys so much. And I'm going to skip me and Danielle's just for the sake of time. Except Danielle, can you tell me who you are in a community?
I'm the lurker. Yeah, I just want to see what drama everyone else is stirring up.
Oh, and I'm the drama stopper. I've got to like correct things and put like the correct information out. Sometimes I hate myself. I'm like, stop it.
I also have to add, I didn't know that Sims was still around, so that's pretty exciting. I feel like I might need to check that out. I'm not a gamer, but who knows? Maybe
And it's
maybe I'll
been
get it.
fun because I've been a Sims gamer since The Sims 1. Like that has
Yeah.
always been my primary. And now my kids, like we just got them a gaming computer and I've just introduced them. They're 13, 9, 5-year-old didn't really get on. But the way they play and the way I play is very different. And watching that has been pretty wild.
That's fun.
All right, so Sasha, I know you have to go early, so I was hoping maybe you could kick us off with just kind of like telling us, the Rio story, kind of how it's moderated, like your best practices, where students find it, that kind of like just kind of nitty-gritty information would be awesome.
Sure. I took your advice. I made a couple slides, so I'll share so you can kind of see. So Rio has we have a proprietary LMS. So we Riofy everything. This is part of our like ongoing identity. So everything is Rio something, Rio this, Rio that. So we called it Rio Connect. It is primarily a peer-to-peer space. Students log in via single sign-on. We launched it, like I mentioned, in September of 2021 as part of a study about student belonging, because that was the goal we were trying to solve. We were trying to solve for lack of student belonging in our asynchronous populations. There was that study and white paper that actually measured and tracked students' reported sense of belonging, and it did show an increase whether they were early or late adopters, which was super cool. So we've kept it going since then, with finding, internal grant funding and such to pay for it. I mentioned that it has single sign-on, which is great because that landing page, of course, looks like everything a student's familiar with. It's not one more password. It's not one more login, etc. It is open to any student that has credentials. So our population I mentioned is predominantly online asynchronous, but we also serve a very large dual enrollment population. We have over 9,000 dual enrollment students. So in theory, they could access the space if they wanted to. They don't really use our LMS very often, so they probably don't know about it, but they could have access. We also have a very large ABE population. We're the largest provider of adult basic education in our state. So we have in-person locations. We have like 10 locations across our valley where we offer programming, and we're working on expanding that into the workforce space. So we have some like IETs and some credit bearing and non-credit parallel programs. And so those students would have access to this space as well. The student portal is their landing page. So it's reallearn.org, which is our, like I mentioned, proprietary LMS. And there is a dedicated button to Rio Connect in that space. So we tried to make the front door as obvious as possible and as accessible as possible, which is great. I also manually upload students several times a semester because, like I said, we have one course, many start dates. We actually have over 40 separate start dates a semester. I think we're at 48 every year, not semester, every year. So I try to proactively upload students so that way they're getting the notifications. But then there is also this dedicated button, and we've embedded it in our first year experience courses, our new student orientation, and since we've launched, what I've noticed is almost not a decrease, but a stagnation in getting new students involved or having them find the space organically. So I really need to refocus our efforts on advertising the space. I'm actually in communication with our marketing team who manages most of our automated communications because I want to start embedding it more deliberately into additional spaces. We recently had a college planning day where we had a student panel of 3 students from different programs that we offer and different experiences, and none of them had heard of Rio Connect, which I was super annoyed about. So I'm thinking, okay, I need to refocus on getting this space in front of them because all 3 of them overwhelmingly said that they still didn't have a sense of community at Rio. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, wah. That was a very small dagger to the heart, but that's okay. It's gonna refocus me. So some of the other things that I've noticed since launch, just observations, is it's very easy to lose purpose in this particular community. A lot of folks see activity with students and they want to jump in and they want to start like, can I promote this? Can I put this in there? And I have to like really set the purpose of this is not a billboard, or yes, we should market to students and show, different events and promote events. But at the same time, this is not just a billboard for us to blast them with all this information and bombard them and overwhelm them and drown them out. And so I've had to really very carefully toe that line or get all of our employees to toe that line and reinforce the message and the purpose of what this space is meant to be. It's really for students to talk to one another. We should all default to being lurkers unless there's a necessity to jump in. And having that too many cooks, this primary space has over 10 channels. 3 of them are private. 1 of those is actually discontinued. And so with all these channels, we also have other stakeholders that are managing those channels, like academic advisors. And some of the advisors have a propensity to jump in and answer questions or jump in and solve the students' problems and want to fix all the things. And I've had to have private conversations with them to pull back just a little bit, let students answer each other, and then maybe endorse the student's answer or redirect if a different student provides the wrong answer, unless it's something that has to truly be escalated because the student's having maybe a major problem or maybe there's an issue with RealLearn and it's not working. We really have had to kind of redirect those conversations a little bit. So that's part of the reflection that I've found. But the positives, when we initially launched, we definitely launched with student purpose in mind. So we used our students to help us launch the space, to define what the space was, what the purpose was. And I think that was very helpful because that's what I used to ground everybody back in the reason that we have this community in the first place. And it really has shown a remarkable ability in place to provide opportunity to build belonging. There have been several students that, I'm struggling, or I'm a 40-plus-year-old person returning to school, and I've got bills and moms to take, and I take care of my mom, and I've got my kids. And, you have all these students that are just reaching out, looking for just a word of support. And there's several that jump in and say, yes, and you can do this, and encouragement. And I love that. And that's what keeps me coming back to that purpose again. So I love that the space has really provided those details to, or that connection to our students, because, especially post-COVID, that's something I think we're all sorely lacking. So anyway, I talked very fast, but and I'll stop sharing now because that's actually the end of my slide deck. But what kind of questions or anything do you have for me about Rio Connect or our experience in the last, 5-ish years?
Sasha, when did you start with channels? You started flat.
We did start flat. We launched channels. So we initially launched in September of 2021 as part of the pilot. And we actually didn't roll out channels for, I want to say, a good 8 months. And the reason we actually started with channels, we had a channel for job postings. We used to have a strong connection with employers, and we had one specific team member that had employer connection, and she had been asked to promote jobs in our space. So that's what that initial channel was for. And then we also have a pretty strong military population. And so we had a channel just for them for promoting like scholarships or deadlines for applying for your VA benefits, or, whatever that was. They're not as widely used. And I feel like channels kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit. So I'm still torn on whether I like our channels or not. And then with channels came separate tags. And so we have a ridiculous number of tags that I wish, that's another reflection, actually, I should have added a delta that I'd like to improve upon is solidifying some of those tags in the space, because there are just too dang many and it's confusing. So those would be words of advice to anybody getting involved. Maybe don't launch channels right away, and really be mindful of the number of tags you have, because it's out of control very quickly. So
That's all. And I think, like, Sasha, one of the things that you said for me too, like, and I'm looking back at some of our customers who are like 3-4 years into it, is right. You start going and you just think it's still going, and you've got to be intentional about, like, oh my gosh, where is it still? Is it still there? Is it still being communicated? How are we communicating it? Like, just worked with someone on just changing what the purpose of the community was, because it changes over time with different students too. So just like looking back, like continuing to be intentional about it. So love that you're doing that too.
Asha, can you tell me a little bit more about how you all use students to kind of ground what the purpose of this community is? Because I think for us, sometimes it feels like we're doing a little bit of everything in our community. And so I'm really intrigued, and it sounds really cool for students to kind of drive what this community is for and how we're going to engage here.
yeah, when we initially launched, we partnered with our PTK. And so we actually went to the PTK students and said, hi, we have a new tool. What would you like from this tool? Tell me what you wish, hope, dream, what you feel like would suit you best. And that was the kind of grounding moment of, they said they wanted a place for them to talk to one another. They wanted a way to connect, maybe share their favorite pizza, or, find some common ground or support, or develop, find a way to connect for a study group. And so that's the message that we keep continuing to drive back with. What I'd actually like to do, now that we've been in the space for a while, is maybe do like a poll and ask the students, okay, check in. How do you feel about this space? What do you think is working well? What would you like to see different? So I'd like to do that maybe for the fall semester. Kind of just do a or maybe even summer. Summer might be a good time to do that and then refresh for the fall. Our semesters are so weird with so many start dates, so we constantly have new students coming in. But I'd like to reconnect and reground in it. But that was where we got it from initially, was that work with PTK. And then as we were launching the space, we asked them to kind of help create posts and start conversations and start championing the space as just kind of informal content creators in a way. And I think that was really helpful to help to get it off the ground.
Yeah, and I'm sure that helped get just tons of buy-in because they were a part of crafting the vision for what the space would be.
Exactly, exactly. And that's the voice that I use to come back to people and say, hey, no, this is their space. This is not our space. If you want your own, we'll talk about creating your own community. We'll do that separately. But for right now, hands off, be a lurker. Slow your roll. So
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, and Sasha, I know you have to go. I'm so sorry I took you all the way to the end. I would say that Adam and Shelley put an awesome poll in your PACE community before launching the student community.
Yeah, so we used that pilot space with the PACE course, and I did a series of either 4 or 5 polls staggered over the course of 5 weeks of trying to gather information of what students really want out of a community with themselves. And we used that information to actually build and then launch our UMGC student community, which we lovingly refer to as the big one. It's still not the biggest. PACE is the biggest, but that's because of constant course enrollment. But yeah. Yeah, we use the poll feature. And I was actually, as you said it, Sasha, I was thinking it's probably time to maybe revisit in the summer for a revamp for the fall. And like as a good re-engage strategy in the summer as well to keep the space active.
Thank you.
Thank you all. It was amazing to meet you. I am so sad I have to go, but this is urgent. So anyway, if you all have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I would love to see what questions you used, Adam and Shelley, in your poll, because maybe I'll replicate that. And I don't have to restart from scratch. So I would love that.
Yeah,
and I
share.
look forward to seeing the video. Thank you. I appreciate
Yes,
it.
I will send the video and a follow-up. Thank you, Sasha.
Excellent. Thank you. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Okay, Kevin and Andrea, do you guys want to go next? Kind of talk about your community?
Yeah, sure. Let me share my page real quick. This one. All right. I don't have like a fancy presentation or anything. It's usually just working off of Google Docs, but I guess this is a little bit about what we're kind of doing and what our evolution, I guess, of Inscribe has been. So when we first started, it was for a smaller population of students. So it was with our fully online program, so about, I guess, 1,000 students. And we tried to hone in on what they cared about the most, and that was academics. And we've tried to also, collaborate with Andrea to bring in the student affairs, the student life portion of it as well, to see if that would help with engagement and belonging. And so, I mean, increase the size of this because it's kind of small. All right, that should be better. So we had different channels. We just had one community, and we did a lot of like moderator posts to try to spark engagement. But hearing from Sasha, it sounds like a lot of lurking, a lot of student-led production and creation has been really successful for them. So that's something we're looking into and trying to create. So this is kind of how it started as the pilot, right? And once we finished the pilot, we were trying to make it accessible to all online, like all students that are taking an online course at UNT, since UNT is predominantly a in-person kind of on-campus public institution with 46,000 students, and we have about 20,000 plus online students. So we wanted to make sure we had that community and have that student virtual union essentially, right? So another part of it is trying to embed it into Canvas. And this is kind of what it looks like. It's called Talent of Talent on our side, but we tried to embed it in Canvas to kind of have that as another option. This is the different revamped look that we started with last fall after the pilot. And so because we've added basically all of our online students, 20,000 plus, we try to create different channels of the colleges to give them the separate spaces that they need. If it's a particular to, a certain degree, or it's particular to a certain question, because engagement and support will be our general community, but then the college itself will have different, maybe class focused things. And that was very similar to kind of how we did it with the academics part of this. And that's what our intention was. But intention is definitely different than reality in terms of engagement and usage in terms of that. So essentially, folks logged in with their UNT email, again, with their SSO. So as long as they have their UNT email and they registered, they can do that. This is kind of what it looks like on the Canvas side. So if you click Town Talent on Canvas, then this is what appears. This is just like a blurry part, but on our specific, oh, this is also Canvas. So this is kind of what it looks like on Canvas. On our specific website, this is kind of what it looks like. Right now we're trying to test out the feed view and trying to see like, oh, how can we best engage with students? So this is just kind of one of the things that we're doing in Engage-a-thon to try to win UNT swag. This is the overall layout on just, I guess, the website itself. So I'll stop sharing that part of it. So I think a big part of what we've been struggling is how to balance engagement in terms of student life and sense of belonging, but also academically, because since we fully work with a fully online program, two of them, a big part of that is creating that community. But I feel sometimes as if maybe this is overwhelming for them, and we wanted to try to strategize a better format, a better structure to at least bring more engagement for our students, and not having us curate information and not create information as moderators, as student employees, but just have that just student-led engagement. And I think that's a big part of why we wanted to kind of have this conversation with you all and try to see if there are any opportunities to kind of adjust our thinking and adjust our mindset to create that student-driven community. And I'm sure Andrea has a ton more to add, and she'll add stuff after I speak here. But yeah, those are things that we're definitely keeping in mind and trying to change, because we've revamped it already since the pilot.
I think we've got a couple of different challenges going on for us. One, we have a lot of resources at UNT, and I think in general, both for our in-person students, it is hard to find what you need when you need it. And so something that we hear often from online students is, oh, I would have loved to participate in this. I didn't know about it. And so I would say from a student affairs side, I use the events a lot. And we do get engagement on events, and it's nice to be able, even if something was hybrid or live stream, to be able to do a recording afterwards and keep it connected to the conversation. I think we kind of tried to separate out like what is from us and what is from students. So typically staff is using like resources, and like that that's from staff. So that's either an announcement or like a big thing that we need to let people know. And then we kind of leave conversations for the students. But I do think moving from those two pilot programs, which were our online general business program and then our Bachelor's of Applied Arts and Sciences, I do think piloting with that group and then opening it up to a couple of different student demographics took a community that was used to just interacting with themselves, and then we've thrown them out into this big ocean of all the rest of online students. And online students, for us, we categorize them as students who are in 100% of online classes, so that their status as an online student can change semester to semester. About 50% of our online students are right in an hour's driving distance of campus. And so we see them flip-flopping back and forth. And I think how a student who's sometimes in person and then sometimes online engages is definitely different than a student who's fully online. I would say we see most of the student engagement and interaction in our engagement and support channel, but we don't see it in the other channels for the colleges and schools. I would also say I think students struggle to find like what is appropriate to post here. Most of what students are posting is when they have a problem or something. And I think it is cool because if it's kind of advice or you're just trying to see if someone else has experienced that, you can let students other students go and give their perspectives, all of that great stuff. But I think in a lot of ways, they are also trying to reach out to us because it is hard sometimes for them to get in contact with departments at our institution. And so I think that's where we're kind of a little lost on this purpose and balance because there is a need for them to have that tie to staff and to have staff jump in and answer questions. Because if I'm a non-traditional student that works full time, I don't have time to be sent to this office, to this office, to this office. And so I can take that legwork off of them and say, okay, I know who to ask for this. You can type this out on your lunch break and I can get you an answer, in a couple of hours versus kind of waiting for emails or phone calls and that type of thing. And so a lot of times we see it used in that way. Kevin, did I miss anything? I feel like
No,
that's kind
no,
of
that
an
was
overview
great.
of like where
Yeah.
we're at.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how we're feeling too. It's just balancing, I think, a lot of different students that have different experiences, especially with the fully online students. It's very different, and they have different needs at the same
Yeah.
time.
I think if we could go back, I would probably say that graduate students, fully online students in Frisco, and maybe even international students probably needed their own communities versus having everyone in one community. And then, yeah, I think channels just get confusing for people, and I don't know that I don't know how I feel about channels or how we would use them in that type of way because I do think that students kind of pick one and usually the one they're automatically populated into and they just stay there. They don't they don't go to the other channels. And then I think one thing to note is that we really didn't have our student staff as involved at the beginning parts. One, I didn't have a student staff at the time. My position is a newly created position in the Division of Student Affairs. So this is my first year with the team in general. And so I do think that has kind of changed how students are interacting because they engage with our students' content way more than they engage with like the things that we're doing, which is how it should be for sure.
Yeah, and at the same time, I also, recently started in this position and working with Inscribe. But that was kind of like the first thing that popped up when I started. So I also didn't have a student staff until more recently. So having
Yeah,
them as
Kevin,
the
you and
help.
I were in the same position. Like it's like, welcome to your role. This is what we're launching.
Hey, we have a great idea, virtual student union that can help
Okay,
solve
sure.
everything.
Yeah, let's roll with it.
I'm like, okay, yeah, yep,
What I love though is that you guys are like you're looking at it now, right? I think that first subset of students, like we were very like much replacing Slack and almost
yes.
like building it like it was a Slack alternative. And these students are different now. And you guys are different now. So it'll be fun, I think, to continue to like, you know, evolve and kind of figure that out.
hmm Yeah, and any input would be very helpful. Any feedback, and if you have any questions, just let us know right now or anytime. Yeah.
Well, Adam was 2 weeks in when he got inscribed. Yeah, do you guys have any questions for them do you guys want to kind of present?
I had a quick question, and maybe I missed this, but so since you use channels, you made the comment, so you automatically enroll them into the group and into a specific channel?
So right now we automatically enroll students that have taken an online class specifically in the engagement and support channel, and
Oh,
they
okay.
can opt into the specific college. I feel like if it was manually doing all of them, it based on college, I mean, maybe it's possible, but it would probably be a lot of time, and we haven't
Yeah.
gotten that deep into it yet.
Yep. Thank you.
I don't think I have any questions. Yeah, mine was about the channels too and about the experience with that. But yeah, so it sounds like you're essentially using that one channel as your main community.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And I think it's tough too with channels. You really need, like, I think Veronica even, like, she struggles with channels. Like, people, it really makes sense in the academic space where you have maybe separate sections, but for the peer-to-peer space, it can get tricky. It just adds this layer of complexity. And unless you have somebody like Frisco, like your Frisco channel, there are definitely people that are in charge of that channel. Then that brings the students back because there's content that's relevant and, recent. Where if you have a channel that's just kind of like empty, it just like is kind of adding to, complexity, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, the way that we launched this year is that all of the channels have moderators from the representative college and school. I think that has been the challenge of getting them on board to, and it's a hard ask. Like right now in higher ed, everyone is being asked to do a lot of different things. And so completely understand that sometimes this can't fall to the top of someone's list, but I think that is the hard part with so many channels, is that if one of those college moderators is not like checking in or being responsive and that type of thing, and it's no longer useful to students, then they're not going to use it. And so I think that's part of some of where we struggled this year too.
Yeah. And then you think of that, like what Sasha was saying too, like she very much tries to tell people like don't post too much because she wants it to be more student driven, so it's so interesting, and I think you're totally right about resources too. One of the things I will say that I've seen when you post a resource, it's like great, students can, and this is a big Rio thing too, they will post resources, gets way more views than anything, but nobody will respond. It's like when you want the engagement, that's really when you post that like conversation. Even for a moderator, if you want someone to engage with it, making it a conversation lends itself more to a conversation.
Yeah, I think in general, when I hear resource, I just think of like something informational and not necessarily something to start a conversation.
Yeah, and I don't think we use them in that way to try and start a conversation. I think that kind of separates out like this is what your peers are saying and this is what's coming from the institution.
Yeah, you guys do awesome with like live events, so I'm excited for
I mean, the live events work really well for us, and I think that does definitely solve a need for our students. Me coming into my position, everyone was like, what do we need to do for online students? I was like, once I did an inventory, I was like, we've got tons of stuff virtually and online that students can participate in. What we don't have is one place where they can see them all. And that's why it might seem like there's not as much going on. But I was like, don't create anything else. Let's wrangle what we have. No one needs to create not another online program for students to engage with, because there's tons of like workshops and live streaming things and asynchronous, like people are doing just a lot of things. And so the biggest problem and challenge is how do we let students find the things that they're interested in.
Yeah, and I'm excited. So Adam and Shelley, when you guys share, I'll kick you guys off, but like I love the one that your student leaders did, just about like the whole ask us anything, like their idea. So okay, I'll let you guys.
And I also don't have like a formal presentation. I actually just took all the screenshots I had saved and threw them into a PowerPoint as other people were talking. So, so I think just real quick before we dive into that, at a high level, Shelley shared really that belonging, that connection piece is really why we brought in a community platform. And it's not that UMGC didn't have them to begin with. There were just a couple of different options that weren't consistent, and like they had no consistent centralized location for access either. So we brought in Inscribe and piloted that alongside a couple of other platforms and then moved forward with Inscribe. And that is what launched within the PACE community. And then we created our general student community last fall. So part of how we market that is the student community is included in some of the communications that go out as students get started as a resource. And then it is first truly introduced to a student during the virtual orientation experience. So this is an example of what that content page would look like for a student, where we just introduce it. This here is one of the videos that Inscribed helped put together for us. So it's not just a static page. They can actually get a video intro there as well. Within our student portal, we have it linked within the left-hand navigation in the main navigation, and that just launches right into the big one. It's also on the support tab within our student portal. And then as far as like our co-curricular course support communities, we have two. I talk about it like we have a ton. We have two right now. Like we are working on growing this experience at UMGC. But we have them embedded really as a learning unit within the courses. So it does help drive some of that engagement in those co-curricular spaces. And we also have the student community listed as a support resource within the classroom as well. So it's embedded in those different ways. Right now, we don't necessarily have a way to track where students are necessarily coming from. That is something that we want to work on with our other departments across UMGC to do a little bit more link tracking so we can really track those access points and make changes as we need to. But that just high level, that's how students access these spaces. And then the models that we have within, we kind of focus on really there's moderation and there's facilitation, and those are two very different things. Moderation, those are the rules, those are the guidelines, those are the genies, the fun police. And the facilitation is really driving the engagement between the students themselves. And prior to this fall, we were relying on faculty and staff to do both of those roles. And once we were standing up the UMGC student community, our first year experience team actually decided to hire some peer interns to help with that facilitation piece. So now the PACE community and our student community are actually facilitated by 4 peer interns that we use. We refer to them as peer leaders within the community, and we have them in as a facilitation role. So they do get that green shield. It lets the other members know that they are kind of an authority. But we also created some rules and best practices around cadence of posting, what the true purpose of that space is. So whenever I talk about the student community at UMGC, I emphasize this is not a tool for UMGC. This is a tool for UMGC students. It is their space, not ours. We can share information in there, but it is really their space to engage with one another. And then making sure that you truly define the purpose of each community or channel that you do launch and ensure that the engagement that happens within that space aligns with that definition. And so that's at a high level, the work we're focused on here at UMGC. Shelley, anything I missed there?
Adam, one of the things that I feel like your peer leaders, like, and Shelley, they are top notch. Like, I feel like when they respond, it's not scripted, but like, how did you train them? You know what I mean? I feel like they make students feel heard, but it's authentic.
Yeah. So I think we didn't want to script them, but we created a peer leader space in Inscribe just for them. So like they have their own community as peer leaders to engage with one another. There's training material in there, there's templates, all of those things. Like if a student asks about this, here's the information. You don't have to go research it. But we did give them some light guidance at the beginning of like, when you're responding to a student, include these things. Acknowledge them by name. Thank you, so-and-so. Hi, so-and-so. Acknowledge something specific from their post, and then just make sure you sign off as a person so that they know who you are. And like just those real 3 general rules have really helped, I think, drive that true engagement where students really do feel seen and acknowledged instead of just getting a blasted answer at them.
Yeah, and I'll add to that because I think part of it's also like a lot of our students are adults, like 2 of them that we just hired are military. And so I think part of it may also be just kind of like where they are and like the fact that they're applying for this role is they want to be engaging, but they also want to be professional and kind of using this as a stepping stone or to build their resume. And so like, I think at least right now, like the lift, like we're able to screen and hire quality students, but then like the lift isn't that much for us in terms of training because they've already like are in the professional world and kind of know like what it means to draft like a decent email versus just like throw something out there.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that like if what would be an interesting conversation too is Rio found that if you had a green badge, people wouldn't respond to you. That is not the case at UMGC. And I think it's just the way they respond. Like they don't respond like UMGC. They respond like students. And I think that goes back to like your
Yeah.
training, you know.
And we also like we don't use them as moderators either. We tell them it's not part of their role. Please look at all of the flagged posts for us, but it like you don't have to handle those. We will. So they're not the ones moving a conversation to moderator only view and engaging the student that way. That's us. So they're kept in that space truly as that student. They just happen to be paid by us to do that.
That is an interesting moderation versus facilitation, right? That is like, yeah, it's an interesting thing that.
It's really interesting too, though. Like all four of them come from our School of Technology, and three of them hold degrees in cybersecurity. And like other institutions where I have tried to do community work, we could not get for the life of us the IT students to engage at all. And we come here to UMGC, and it's like I think it's most of our population that's active within the space. It's really interesting.
Super interesting. Any questions for these guys?
Thank you for sharing all that. I think that's super helpful, especially having hired peer interns and peer leaders to facilitate things. And I wonder, that's something I would probably bring back to our division and our department and see if we have the budget for that, and try to have that specifically for Inscribe and our instance, because I feel like that would be helpful. I know Andrea has some student workers that are part of that, but mine aren't. Mine are more for, other things like retention and success related to our specific programs, but not necessarily just for Inscribe. So something to consider, and I think that's very helpful.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
on
and
our end, it's very new. So we don't have like in general, we don't have a lot of student workers or student assistants or anything like that. So this is a pretty new thing on our end.
yeah,
Yeah.
we started with two in the fall, recently hired two more, and we limit them to 6 hours a week. So like it is not a huge lift on their end.
Yeah, we've got two from the Division of Student Affairs as well, but similar to Kevin's students, Inscribe is not the only piece of their job. And I think for my students in particular, a big part of their job is social media. And so in a lot of ways, like when I look at what they post, it feels like content for social media and not necessarily um, as conversational as we would hope it to be. I do find that they have a lot of success though, I think, when they have like a call to action or an ask for students. And so that's something that we're looking into as well. And they do a really good job of like truly wanting to hear from students and wanting other students to share their experiences. And so I think with our population of students, when they have the opportunity to share what they're doing, share what they've got going on, they always engage so much more around those things for sure. But they're not badged though. Mine are just in there, and so they appear as a regular student, and things like that. And I think we went back and forth between whether they should have an elevated role or not. I think I decided against it just because we don't want them moderating, but also we really just wanted them to be conversation starters, not necessarily even facilitate in the community. But I do think it's interesting to kind of see how it is set up for you all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I
and
think I probably supported that, Andrea. Like, yeah, badge. So like the way UMGC is doing it is different. It's interesting.
It'll be interesting to see if that changes though, because we just changed in the community where it says meet the moderators. Prior to, I think 2 weeks ago, like myself, our first year experience folks, and Shelly were listed as the moderators in the community. And 2 weeks ago, we changed that to reflect the peer leaders rather than us. I haven't seen a change in the space just yet. It doesn't mean it won't happen, but it is definitely something that I'm keeping an eye on.
Awesome. I have like kept you guys like all the way to the very end. Was this helpful at all? Like, did you like hearing each other's stories? You can say no, then,
No, yeah,
This is helpful
100%.
for me. I
Yeah.
enjoyed this.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear how it's functioning in every other, institution, but also I think it's just helpful to network and just be a part of this, because we're all trying to make our students succeed, right? And
Yeah.
we're all trying to help them grow. And I think this is super helpful for any institution, honestly.
Yeah, I just thank you all for participating. I really do feel like, we have a lot of other institutions that have these. I'm super excited that, the three of yours, like, you guys came together, but I do think people would love to hear, how you're doing it, and we'll have a lot of questions. Online learning is not going away. I think it's gonna grow. It seems like, continues to expand. So I know, Danielle, we're super, we want students to succeed. We want them to feel connected. If they feel connected, we can build belonging. Hopefully we can keep them going, so yeah, so thank you for participating in this. I will, try to kind of clean up an agenda. And then if you have ideas, please give feedback of what you think, for a larger meeting. But I would love for you to tell your stories, your experiences, because I really think, the good and the bad, the pitfalls, the good things, like we can learn from all of it. So
Yeah, I know she's already gone, but I really liked how Sasha did like the pain points and I think she had like a slide with the challenges and like the good thing, whatever it was. But I feel like the wins or whatever. But I think like having something like that even like people could take away. And I don't know if we would collaborate on it too. Like we could even have like one slide that we all put it on or like one for each of us. But I feel like having some type of takeaway could be useful.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
I was actually going to say thank you, Jeannie, for inviting me in here today, because I think that there are some resources or maybe even some blog posts that we could create as resources for you all, not just you, all of our partners. And then I also want to say, Jeannie, thank you for all the organization of this. I know it's not just like you don't just whip this together. So thank you for taking the time to bring everyone together.
Well, I super love working with you all and Danielle. My partner. But I super appreciate it. Thank you for your time. I will be in touch. I love that idea, Shelley. I love that kind of the pain point and takeaway. So but again, have an amazing weekend.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
So nice
you.
to meet you.
Talk soon.
Bye, all.
All right. Bye-bye.